You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Hawks Postcast, your home for the best Hawks talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere else, but right here at Locked On. I'm Tenitra Batiste, and alongside me is Deshaun Tate. Today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. The Locked On Hawks Postcast is part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Deshaun, the Hawks were looking to start their 5-game homestand on a winning note. After dropping the last couple on the road, we'll deep dive on the Hawks and how they prevailed 139-132 in overtime against the Sixers. We'll talk about it in the and one, and we'll also talk about what's next. But first, let's get your take and mine on what went down tonight in this Hawks-Sixers game. You say, I want to see a game with no asterisk.
Yeah, no, for sure, Tenitra. And listen, you know, we excuse me, we always, talk about when you're able to get wins that you don't necessarily love. It's kind of like, I don't love my wins like that, but I take it. We understand that everybody has a mentality of I'll take any win that I can get type of thing. And I think that that's great. But I need to see an exclamation point on a win at some point. I need to see a Hawks stamp on a win, especially against a team that you've lost 5 straight against. The reigning defending MVP is not active for the game. Mm-hmm. And this isn't a dig or a shot at Philly by any means. And if anything, it was credit to Philly because they are, won 5 consecutive last 5 consecutive meetings, 2 in a row this year against Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like this was the time for Atlanta to kind of flex its muscles a little bit more. Now, granted, Philly's still a good team. If not nothing else, definitely at least good without Joel Embiid. We all understand or overstand, rather, that it's not the same team. But when you have pretty much everybody, I get it. You don't have Clint Capella, respect to him. You don't have DeAndre Hunter. Again, that's a whole nother conversation that I probably got veins popping out of my forehead about right now. But no, just realistically, though, but you still had what it takes to be able to put them away, in confident fashion. That didn't happen, and they just making games a little bit too close for my liking. And to be honest with you, I think that that's okay to say.
I think it's okay, too, because it did bother me as well when I looked at the team stats and I thought, okay, like you said, no Joel Embiid, the reigning MVP, and yet the largest lead that the Hawks were able to have was 7. Like, they never really had control of the game or ran away with it. And that bothered me too. I thought, okay, yes, Clint Capella's gone, but it's not exactly a 1-for-1, right? With Clint and Joel being out. I thought that should have been more advantage Hawks. But again, we take nothing away from the fact that a win is a win is a win, especially when you're looking at the fact that this is a team who, like you said, just dropped 2 on the road and just got blown out in one of those 2. And then in the other, it was a heartbreaking loss in overtime. And then you look back at the record overall and you're thinking to yourself, okay, it's not just about those 2 games. It's also about looking at the fact that you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And out of those 9 games, 6 out of the last 9 would have been, or 6 of the last 8, if you will, would have been losses up until you get to tonight, right? So, yeah, I think it's important for you, as we say, to really just kind of string some wins together and start kind of feeling positive about what you can do. And a win is a win is a win. But I'm going to take something from the tape book. And you've said it before. I'm going to say it tonight. This is one of those games you were supposed to win. But I'm so excited to say you actually did. I mean, because we've had these conversations where we're like, are you kidding? And the definition of supposed to win can be different for different situations. Sometimes it's because you're playing the lowly Detroit Pistons, who had at that time lost 20 plus games when you ran into them, right? So that's a game that you should win. San Antonio Spurs, that's a game that you should win. A game where you're evenly matched because maybe a team plays a little bit more small ball like you do, and that's a game you should win. Like in OKC, they're pretty evenly matched. Now, they did, granted, we'll give them that. They won against OKC, but this was a winnable game for them as well. And yeah, I'm happy to say that they actually won the game. I think it's just more, I agree with you. I wish that it could have been, and again, no offense to the Sixers, not saying that you want to like turn the knife there, but 139 to 132 in overtime, barely eking it out, save for a defensive play for Trae to save the day at the end of the fourth quarter. Granted, he missed a shot, so there's that, and he missed a free throw, so there's that. But then Jalen Johnson, and we'll talk about that more in the and one, but save for him doing heroics in overtime, this would have been one of those games where you and I would have been like steaming from the head.
Yeah.
So again, it's just one of those where we really actually wanted you to win because you should have, and you did.
And I hate to sometimes be like the negative Nelly guy or whatever, what have you, but like you mentioned the Detroit Pistons. I'm glad that you brought that up because I have been one that have made comparisons, and we get it. I'm speaking only somewhat facetiously when I say that this team and their performance has been somewhat Detroit Pistons like to me. And some people might think that that's a little bit blasphemous, but when you consider this team and where we expected for them to be, what the expectations were versus the Pistons' expectations for their season, then I think that it kind of measures up to some degree. And just being a little bit upset with the fact that we're kind of seeing way too many one single guys who are extremely talented, we get it, go off against our team, whether that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, whether that's Tyrese Halliburton a few times this year, Tyrese Maxey a few times this year. That was one of the things that I was kind of curious on what we would see as far as tonight. We know about, the Tyrese Maxey. We know about Tobias Harris, who had a good night on tonight as well. 32 points, 50% from the field. Yeah. But those other guys around them is who I was kind of curious who would step up for them. Would we see Kelly Oubre step up? Would we see DeAnthony Melton, two guys who didn't particularly have really great games? Hence another reason, and credit to the Hawks, that's fine, and their defense, which is fine, as to why those guys didn't have great games. We seen Marcus Morris go out there and hit a couple 3-pointers for them. He stepped up. So when other guys start to step up in Embiid's absence, how would the Hawks then respond to those things? And I think that was great. Seeing, with the fact that, 6 or 7 players who played tonight for the Hawks all scored 15 points or more. I thought that was very telling, the way that, we sometimes see some inconsistencies between halves, first and second, with Dejounte and the way that he wants to score the ball. So I thought that was good. Trae, knowing that it's not a typical Trae night, and deferring to some other guys. Jalen Johnson having a career rebounding night, not just scoring amongst other things. I thought that we saw some really great things from Saddiq Bey, who chipped in his 15 and 10 with a double-double, and Bogey doing his 15 point. So I know that's kind of, but you know what? It's good that I'm being long-winded about some positive things that the Atlanta Hawks did tonight, because to be honest with you, I can't remember the last time that I've been able to do that either.
Yeah, because like we said, it was a tough. There were no superlatives. Come on now. There were no superlatives that we could have thrown out there that would have made any sense for the Pacers, if we're just being honest. But I will say there was one thing that you called out as well that we also try to keep an eye on this Locked On Hawks postcast, and that is whether or not there's that guy who comes out of nowhere and just torches the Hawks. That's also how you get a win. That's also how you gut out a win. Tyrese Maxey was going to get his. Tyrese Maxey has been getting his all season. He has been doing MVP-like things this entire season for the Sixers. That was no surprise for us that he did what he did. Now, did the Hawks get a little bit of help there in the overtime? Absolutely. But, hey, you do what you got to do. You put him in position to foul out, and he took the bait. Not your fault. It's not your problem. You know what I mean? But what I do like is the fact that there wasn't that X guy, that guy who came out of nowhere. Yes, Mark. Yes, we can say that one player won, and Marcus Morris. But to me, Marcus Morris getting 17 points is not exactly what I would call that X factor. Usually it's some guy, because if you look down the line, 4 of 9 from the field and 3 of 8 from 3, I'll take that, because typically it's
me too.
It's that X factor guy coming out of nowhere, and he's the guy who unfortunately will torch you for like 20, 25, 27 off of like 4 of 6 3-point shooting or 8 of 10, and you'll be like, who the heck is this guy?
Yeah.
What we got from the Hawks tonight because of those critical factors that we just mentioned. And listen, we're going to deep dive a little bit more when we come back on the other side. We're going to talk more Hawks Sixers in the and one. And guys, this episode of the Locked On Hawks Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but the postseason is just around the corner. You know, there are going to be some big games this weekend that we know you're going to check out. And that means there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Low key, that might be a good idea because you guys and girls got about a month before you got to pop that dollars and, you know, bring out your wallet for Valentine's Day. Yeah, for some people. Anywho, this might be a way to get some extra dollars for it. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays, finding bets in the new Explore tab, making a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is actually the best way to find popular parlays. Again, live same game parlays, finding bets in the new Explorer tab, and making a parlay in the Parlay Hub. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make your first bet a layup. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. All right, time to get into the and one and dive into this game. And like we've already said, we knew that Joel Embiid was going to be out this game, but we also found out Clint Capella, who went in as questionable, he was confirmed to be out for the game as well. So Onyeka Okongwu gets the start for the Hawks at center. And really just they kind of played, and I don't want to say small ball, but they played, you know, 2 small forwards and a power forward essentially. So we'll call it small ball for the sake of what, you know, we're talking about tonight. But small forward, power forward, small ball, big ball, it doesn't matter. Onyeka Okongwu played big, especially to start this game. Four boards, 11 points in the first quarter alone. Of course, he ends with 19 points and 11 rebounds. And he also had some key plays down the stretch, both in the fourth quarter, overtime. One of our colleagues, Deshaun said, tweeted out the closing 5, which was the closing 5 tonight, should be Trae, DJ, Bogey, Jalen 00. So that made me want to ask you, is this a closeout lineup that Quinn Snyder should consider, especially considering the way the Hawks have closed out some games that they've eventually lost the last few weeks?
To consider, yes, for sure. But let's be very clear about something. There won't be every game that the, you know, reigning MVP is going to be sitting out, you know, for the opposition. So sometimes you may not necessarily be able to utilize that. You know, there's going to be, you know, it's not going to be every single time that Clint Capella is going to be out. There might be some instances where, you know, somebody else isn't playing as great of a game, or just I think it's situational at the end of the day in a roundabout way to kind of bring it all back around full circle. I think it's situational. I think it just kind of depends on who the opponent is. I felt really good about, you know, because I can't say that I can't tell you the last time I felt this good about Onyeka Okongwu's performance, where I thought, you know, he's not picking up, you know, 2 back-to-back fouls and unnecessarily in the first quarter or something that's going to limit his time and have everybody feeling like, especially without Joel Embiid being there. I felt like this needed to be his coming out party in a roundabout way. It was. But I don't have a good feeling on what he's going to be in the next game. Right. That I don't particularly love, but I am loving how I feel on tonight when I lay my head on the pillow based on what he was able to do. But, you know, they needed to control the paint in the absence of an MVP. And he contributed to that. He did that. And to be honest with you, I know there was a lot of question marks and people kind of scratching their heads when we learned that there would be no more John Collins. We did not anticipate, you know, Jalen Johnson being what he is. So what Jalen Johnson has done is kind of somewhat what we expected from Onyeka Okongwu, especially in a position where there is no Clint Capella. And tonight he showed that he could be that Jalen Johnson, type of performer. And two big time blocks down the stretch at the end. I think one on Oubre and then the other one on someone else that I just can't even remember, but it doesn't even matter at this point. I just think that it was really good on both sides, offensively and defensively. Kept his head, kept his cool, knew exactly what to do, and all the good stuff when it came to when it came to the tail end of the game, things like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. It's interesting because I can't tell you the last time I saw a plus anything with Onyeka Okongwu or a low minus, right? And tonight he was a -1. But again, to your point, Onyeka was the one, the last couple of seasons, we've been saying the same thing. Oh, put your best big man in there. That's fine. Double O's got it, because Double O literally, I think he was giving I know that phrase I wanted to say to Sean. He'd been living rent free in Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, seriously.
In good seasons.
He has.
Every big man you can think of, he literally was the guy where you throw him in there for some big time minutes, 10 or 12 minutes a game to disrupt that big. And he was effective. And then I don't know, it was kind of weird because as much as I loved seeing him evolve his game offensively, developing a 15, 17-foot jumper, and even taking the occasional three when it was a good shot for him to take, I felt like, okay, he's kind of taking a step back with him being like the assassin and the boogeyman when it comes to some of these bigs. But that's no different than what you and I are going to talk about in a second about Trae Young, where sometimes as you're trying to evolve your game in one area, it may take a step back in another until you are able to bring it together. And I thought tonight was that night where we saw Double O kind of bringing it back together, like the old Double O boogeyman for whoever your big is, but then the new O who also takes quality shots and also knows how to defend the big without fouling. That's the guy we saw tonight.
Oh, and not only that, but I think we kind of feel like we saw a fully engaged Dejounte Murray for all 4 quarters and throughout the entire duration of the game, and not just kind of feeling like I'm going to swing it around to Trae because this is his team and I'm going to let him do his thing kind of vibe that I sometimes get. I'm obviously not saying that's the case, but sometimes I feel like that's what we get to from time to time from him. Like I feel like on a game like, on a night like tonight, he reminded himself that he was the number 1 option when he was in San Antonio kind of thing. And that was a really, good feeling, if I'm just being honest. And as a team, they gave the max effort, because there aren't many times that we can say, oh, well, there was no drop off in the 3rd quarter, or they came out starting slow. Like, I feel like all 4 quarters for the most part was very equal. It was also very balanced effort as well. And I think the other thing is this is one that they needed, not only because this was home court, a place that they're not necessarily playing that great this season, but also because I think I speak for a lot of people when I say leading up to tonight, we all had a feeling that something's not right here. Like something's going on and nobody's really addressing it. I get it. We're seeing rumors being thrown around out there and everything else about Dejounte Murray to this place and that place, and these people interested. And we've been dealing with the same thing with Trae over the course of the last year or so. And things have been just really seeming kind of weird about all of this. But at the end of the day, it felt like all of those rumors and just rumor mill, everything else was on the outside, and they played maybe their best game of the entire season together on tonight.
Well, either that, or if you're a petty person and you like to have a petty party, then you would say, also, today's the first day that really Dejounte Murray's eligible for trade. But we won't go there. I'm just saying that's what some people might say if there's a correlation there. But what I want to go back to as well is talking about Onyeka Okongwu and how we saw him kind of have that well-rounded game that we become accustomed to, where he was putting that old Double O and pairing that new Double O together. And we were seeing the offensive prowess and the defensive prowess come together. I said the same thing for Trae Young, because he finished with 12 of 14 from the free throw line, right? But those 2 misses were super critical, one of which is pretty much that sent you to overtime. But if you can get a big block, translation, defense, out of 11, like
Mhm.
you saw tonight, where he said, "Yeah, I missed that free throw, but I'm gonna block this. I'm gonna block this shot and make sure that somehow I give my team another 5 minutes to close this thing out." I'm gonna take that because I don't want him to ever get in a space where he stops giving us something on defense because maybe a little bit is slacking on offense. So yeah, I don't like the fact that Trae misses more free throws than we're accustomed to. This has always been a 90+% free throw shooter.
Mhm.
You know what? I'll take it this season because I'm loving when I hear Trae, and I'm in my Steve Holman voice. Trae Young blocks the shot. I think Trae Young blocked the shot. Like, I will take that all day, every day, because when it gets down to it, yes, free throws definitely matter, but that kind of defensive effort matters as well.
Well, no, I agree with that. And I think that, by him being the cerebral player that he is and high IQ, just to know how to pick up, one of the more telling things was getting that, sixth foul on Tyrese Maxey, even though I don't necessarily agree that was, was it a foul, but I would have loved to see them play that one out, if I'm just being honest. Like, I want to see what this team was going to be made out of with Tyrese Maxey still on the floor. Nonetheless, it was a foul, a little on the petty side, but it was a foul, and he fouled out. By all means, so be it. But with that being said, I think that kind of turned the dynamic of the game around, and that kind of made a little bit of a difference. But give credit to Trae Young, who did what he was supposed to do. And he goes to the free throw line and he misses 1 of 2 and can easily hang his head. And I told you how I personally felt about there being way too many instances, especially for a point guard. Those are free spaces on the bingo card, as I call them. You got to be able to knock down those free throws. To miss the first one, make the second one, and then turn around and then, be able to make some plays on the backside in terms of defensively. I thought that kind of was very telling as well, where if there's a young kid out there who's watching basketball and he's a point guard or whatever, what have you, making mistakes, you could easily just hang your head. But he got back on defense and he made some plays happen that I think was very big in, what ultimately we saw resulting in a win.
Indeed. We love to see the 139-132 win. When we come back, we've got some flowers to give. You guys are accustomed to us giving these flowers, but hey, we're still going to give them. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what is next. Now, BetterHelp is also our sponsor for this episode. I want to tell you a little bit about BetterHelp because it's something that is really cool to think about right now, especially as we're starting this new year, right? Everybody has goals or resolutions depending on how you kind of proceed with starting your New Year's, but sometimes you get so obsessed with how to change yourself instead of maybe just taking incremental steps to be the better you that you can be. So maybe you finally organize one part of your space, and then you can take a step to do another. Maybe you're taking your supplements in the morning, but now you got to eat the right way. You got to make sure that you get to the gym, and then you got to keep it going. How do you do that? Sometimes with a little bit of help from therapy, and that is where BetterHelp may come in. Whether or not you've been in therapy before, had coaching before, it definitely has some benefits we can all attest to in some way, shape, or form. So if you're thinking of starting therapy yourself, give BetterHelp a try. That's a goal or resolution that I can get behind. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime if you need to for no additional charge. So celebrate the progress you've already made, but look forward to making even more by visiting betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/lockedonnba and get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. All right. It wouldn't be a Locked On Hawks postcast with Tate and T unless we gave flowers to Jalen Johnson. So
No doubt.
Flowers to Jalen Johnson like we do. It's the fun part of what we do on this show, right? 25 points. Woohoo! 41 minutes. And I'm so amazed at that because he literally has come back almost like he never left for better, if that's crazy to say. started back about 3 weeks ago. His first game was like 26 minutes, and now here we are 6 games into his return, and he's back up to 41 minutes. That's 8 of 13 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3 points, perfect from the charity stripe, and of course, 16 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. This is like a man amongst boys. I love it.
I know. And I can't really believe where I'm still kind of in awe. Because as I always say, and I always go back to, me being able to see him on the circuit coming out in high school, and even his growth from his college days, even his growth from a year ago when he first came in, G League. I mean, you name it. He's literally taken, the stairs up, and just seeing the way that he has grown as a player and matured in his body, matured in his game. I'm saying things, and this doesn't happen very often. I don't want to sound like the arrogant guy, but it's not very often that in this very small sample size, this very small window of about 3 calendars from when a guy 3 or 4 calendars goes from a guy who, is a high schooler and definitely kind of seems kind of one-dimensional to some degree as an outside shooter, stretch 4, to now being on an NBA team and being considered one of only 2 guys who is untouchable on a franchise team. Like, that's crazy to me. And all of the flowers go to him. So many flowers. He could open up a floral shop probably. But certainly all of the bouquets and all of the corsages and every kind of flower you could probably think of. Listen, I give so much credit. Like, I'm in awe. I'm watching him do things that I'm just like, he's flying across the court, going in for dunks. He's playing, like his head is on fire. You know what I mean? And he's doing it effortlessly. It looks natural. He's not forcing anything. He's not going out there doing moves that he looks like he just made up in practice yesterday. Like, everything is looking fluid, it's looking efficient, it's looking confident, it's looking sharp, it's looking very clean. And I like what I've seen out of him. And I'm gonna throw this one last little thing out there because I know we're definitely giving flowers to him. But I want to give just some quick flowers to Bruno Fernando, a guy who came in, brought some energy when he was on the floor. Oftentimes, I sometimes feel like when he's on the floor, it feels like we're playing 5-on-4. You know what I mean? And the Hawks just have the 4. But he definitely contributed. He played with some confidence tonight. He played strong in the place of Clint Capella, and I like what I saw out of him tonight. Honestly, I do.
Oh, I would agree. This might be the most quality set of 17 minutes I have seen him ever play for the Hawks. Now, when I saw him in other spaces and places, like when I saw him with his G League play, yeah, I could say that. But when we're talking about 8 points in 17 minutes, 3 blocks and a steal from Bruno, I think he most definitely deserves flowers. And one more thing I want to say before we preview Friday's game just about Jalen is I have to agree with you as well. I had an opportunity to speak with Landry Fields at length. I interviewed him during a blowout game over at Skyhawks, right? And one of the things I told him was, or talked to him about, was Jalen Johnson, and saying how it's wonderful to be able to have that type of living example within your own ranks to say, hey, you guys, if you buy in to the program we're putting in place here in College Park, this is what can happen for you. This is what can happen for you. And you can see guys buying into that down at the G League with their new coach, Ryan Schmidt, who was handpicked by Quinn Snyder, who is at Hawks practices. The philosophy is the same. There's consistency. So you're going to see more of this. I like a lot of what I'm seeing with Kobe Buffkin. I like what I've seen with Seth Lundy. And that's why I wanted to give flowers as well to the extended family of the College Skyhawks, because you truly have what it is that's going to get you from point A to point B, meaning get you from College Park, get you from Gateway Center to State Farm Arena, and then get you from the State Farm Arena bench and get you up where Jalen Johnson can be. And Willie Carswell, who always joins us, appreciate you, my guy. You say Tanitra and Deshaun Hawks won't, but I can't say enough about Jalen Johnson. This dude continues to amaze me, and he ain't scared of nobody. Willie, say it for the people in the back.
In the back, right.
The fact that he is not afraid, he plays, ain't never scared, but it's like this confidence. It's in your face, but it's like a quiet assassin. I might nickname him the Quiet Storm because he does it so on the quiet tip.
I want to throw one more thing out there. Could he? I mean, at this rate, I'm not sure who else will be in this conversation. But I would imagine we got to be talking about most improved at this point. Like, I feel like you have to, like I might have to write the NBA myself if we don't see him on this list and somewhere amongst one of the finalists. I mean, with where he's at, I'm not sure that we could be having a conversation about anybody else. And I would imagine maybe not, maybe not become the winner. But I think Bogdanovic has got to be somewhere right around that 6th man of the year conversation as well.
Yeah, that's a great call too. And if you can do this, say this, and then we'll wrap it up. If you can have a most improved player in your starting lineup and a 6th man who leads the bench like this 6th man leads this bench, and if you could just get one more piece on the bench for him to give you some perimeter play, and if you can do just a little bit of tinkering with that lineup, that starting lineup, I'm gonna just leave it right there, Deshaun, because I know we got to get out of here. But I really do think that the Hawks can make a type of second half run that can pull them out of the play-in round and pull them into a legitimate playoff contender. That's all I'm going to say. But Robert, we appreciate you too, because we got to get your comment in, because you always stop by and rock with us as well. The Hawks finally played with heart and they trusted their teammates in the clutch. I couldn't agree with you more, because anytime, Robert, on this show, we can talk about players not named Trae Young, not wearing number 11, as being a part of clutch play. That's when this is a good Locked On Hawks postcast. When you are coming on the show and talking about somebody other than Trae, or in addition to Trae, that's when we know we've done our job, because you guys are coming in and saying this. And that's when, more importantly, the Hawks have done their job. So, as always, appreciate you guys stopping by the Locked On Hawks postcast. And don't forget to tell a friend. But if you told a friend to stop by the show, tell them to like and subscribe our YouTube channel as well. We appreciate all the love and the support. And of course, for more on the Hawks, you have to check out Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. We'll see you next time.